Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2.
Here.
Oh, testing 1 2. Alright, well, I guess we're not. It could be feedback. Could be feedback. From the
Can you move speakers from?
It could be feedback. Yeah. It could be feedback. Could be feedback. I think it might. Stop. It could be feedback. Yeah. It could be feedback. All right, Salaki family. Salaki family. Yeah. Alright, Salaki family, Yeah. Okay, first off, this is probably the biggest culprit right here. That's the biggest problem. Just because it was playing back and this is probably picking this up.
The worst.
This is probably the biggest culprit right here. That's the biggest problem. Just because it was playing back and
Sounds so bad.
this is probably picking this up. Oh no, Elder, it's these. It might no. Yeah, it is. Oh, yeah, it is that. You was plugged into the speakers. I was wondering why I was doing it so much. It was a lot. All right, let me see what we got going on now.
Testing.
Okay, it sounded good now. All right, I'm gonna try to.
That's it.
The same right there?
Let me see if I plug this charger back in. Will it mess up?
That's it.
Oh. All right, we back.
That's it. Ain't no more feedback.
No more feedback,
You
no
good?
more buzz.
I guess it's them little bones.
Okay. I would really like to try those these mics one more time.
Yeah, maybe that wasn't the problem.
Right.
Maybe it was the system.
Try these mics one more time.
Yeah, maybe that wasn't the problem.
Right.
Maybe it I heard it buzzing.
Let's pick it up. Charger probably.
I heard it buzzing.
Last time we.
No, we don't need this on right at all.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know what it is? Wait.
We don't need this on at all right now.
No, the laptop. No, this ain't even plugged in though. It might. Cause last time it was my charger. My charger ain't plugged in. This one is though, but that one didn't.
How we sound now? I know it's a delay, but whatever. See. Yeah. It's ready.
It's that.
It's on it. Here, if someone turn the power on, the buzzer sound.
Oh, okay.
That was this. We cool. No, because that's a delay.
Test 1 2.
It wasn't that long. You're right.
Right. That was my test right there.
No, whenever you touch down there,
I took the charger off.
Okay, there we go.
It still buzzing a little bit there.
you touch behind there.
Testing.
Oh no, it's good now.
Let's go. Let's get it.
I don't want it to die on us though, man.
How much power you got?
When it's running a constant video, it's gonna go fast. It's almost full, bro.
Okay.
If I take these, I'll put charger on.
That's cool.
I'm like, you gonna them out next time? Okay. All right, Salaki family.
Testing.
Excuse the technical difficulties.
Trying to get everything in order. Eli vibes. 1,000 days.
Shalom.
My brother. Hey, week boy, you changing these names, man. I can't keep up with you. Let you know. My brother.
Oh, I gotta.
Brother
That's
Elijah.
okay. Okay, we good. Testing 1, 2. All right, family. How's our audio? It should be good now.
Good. Okay. Somebody leave?
I think they went to grab somebody there.
Okay. We'll wait.
Okay.
Super moon tonight.
Yeah, I see him sitting with my son.
Big and pretty too, boy.
Yeah, it was like that yesterday too.
How much time do we need, family? No, I wait for the sisters to set up.
Test 1, 2. Testing 1, 2.
No,
Test 1,
they're
2.
the precepts. When we do holy days, we command to review the story. So we're gonna go over the story. So we all, a lot of us understand what the Feast of Purim is. But we have to always remember those who are who don't know. So we're gonna go from the beginning and read the whole story, so we have a full understanding of what this is all about. We good, sisters? No? Shalom, my sister. My sister slash niece. How did your nephew, your sister like the
She's like, I'm gonna
garment?
cry. Can't do that.
Oh, praise. I'm gonna do this boy right here.
Oh.
Yeah. He's a little better.
Get it on his head.
No, you're gonna sit down here with the class. You're gonna sit on the table with your family.
Yeah, get you one of these books, man.
No, you need your phone. What you need is the Bible. Put your phone back on the charger and get a Bible. We in class. Come here to learn. You can go all night and play on your phone with your little videos and stuff. That's right. What is she? I'm just gonna start. Here we go. Shalom, family.
Shalom.
I want to give our praise and honor and glory to the Most High Ahayah by Hashem Yasha for allowing us to come here today to honor and celebrate His high holy day, Feast of Purim. So, what is Feast of Purim? And how come our people, most of our people, have not heard ever of the Feast of Purim? All right? I'm not going to answer the question. We're going to read the story. One thing I want us to consider is all the Most High holy days are days of remembrance. They are very important to His people because these high holy days are not like the worldly holidays. The majority of our holy days has to do with a time that the Most High saved us from eradication. Christmas, don't do that. Easter, don't do that. The Most High holy days is something that He commands us to teach our children and our children's children. Why? That's an open question. Why does the Most High command us to keep in remembrance His high holy days with our children and our children's children? Yes.
So just in case our records get destroyed, we verbally told them what happened and why it happened and what the actual holy day was about.
Brother said, so it's in case our records get destroyed, they will have learned and remembered orally. They would know the premise of it. They would know the real reason of the high holy days. Also, to add to that, it is to establish faith and trust in our children in our God. To teach our children who our God is and how powerful His mighty hand is. Our children, first, ourselves need to understand that, but we need to establish that with our children so they can grow up believing in the Most High. Knowing that the Most High is over their parents. There's something more powerful than their parents. And to understand that if He had done these wonders, as He called them wonders, with our forefathers and for our forefathers, He will also do the same thing with their children. So we're gonna, and it also puts us in the proper space mentally to understand what the Most High has been trying to express to His children for generations. When He tells us not to adopt any of the customs of the nations. Because He says we have to be a holy people, separate from the nations. He said that they will be a snare to us. Our children will leave Him and follow their gods. Because all this is spiritual. As is written, this is a spiritual warfare. So when we adopt the customs, the traditions, the ceremonial days of the nations or the world, we put our faith in the world, not the Most High. It becomes more important as it has sprinkled down or trickled down to our day. It becomes more important for us to have a day off work to be with our family than to remember what the Most High has done for our family. And to build and establish, like we said earlier, that faith, that hope. Because He teaches us that the powers to be are our enemies, not to trust in them. He also says that they have conspired against us to destroy us. At first, keep us in the darkness religiously, spiritually. But their ultimate plan is to destroy Jacob, destroy the children of Israel. So if we teach our children what our holy days are all about, knowing that Christ is the fulfillment of the holy days because He's the fulfillment of the law, and the holy days are the law, are part of the law. It's the ceremonial part of the law. That our children will not put faith in the government, but they put faith in their God. And see as you can see, the reverse effect of what has happened. Our forefathers have forsaken our God. Therefore, our children don't even know who He is. Many of our people walk around saying that all it takes is for you to believe in a higher power. Or to call on the name of, so-called Jesus. And they think that's it. Well, if we establish the law in our children, they will grow up knowing that that's not it. Because you read in the Bible, there's things that we must do. Uphold this law. Stand still for Him. That means stay strong in our integrity to Him and our faithfulness to Him by being obedient to His words, by being obedient to His laws. And I thank you all for coming out tonight because this is a show of your obedience. And I was saying earlier today, this is to my story because I told the brother I was going to tell this. I was going to build on what I texted y'all earlier today. And to show that, all of us are susceptible to the attack of demons. So I'm not no exception. But because I had a misunderstanding of the day, I lost a lot of money today that I really needed. So, for those who know, I'm a truck driver. I own my own company and drive my own trucks. And I had my day all planned out. And when I realized, because we supposed to meet yesterday, we supposed to meet tomorrow. And when I got corrected, I'm like, man. So I'm like, I'm sitting on a load, and I got loads already that I agreed to. You know, I'm like, that's $1,500, you know. And so this morning I woke up because it was on my spirit. I'm like, I'm just gonna cancel the loads. I don't care what they say and what the repercussions of it is, but I can't do the Most High like that. It's not about money, even though I need money, but who I'm putting my trust in. You know what I'm saying? And I was telling him that I felt good. I said, now currently speaking, because a lot of us put stuff on the Most High, he don't be having anything to do with it. So I said, currently thinking, I feel good this morning because I think I passed the test. Because check out how my day went, right? I got up about 5 o'clock. I left the house about 5:30. I waited to 7, but I already told my wife that I was going to come home after I dropped this load off. I was going to cancel my loads and come home. We had class tonight. While I'm on the road traveling, I'm like, man, that's $1,500. I'm like, no, we can meet tomorrow about 4 o'clock. I can do my loads and then we still be good. But I'm like, nah, I can't do it because anything can happen and that would be being carnal, you know. And so I waited till 7 o'clock until the broker's office opened. And I called the brother and I told him that I had something to do, that I could not take the load. And nothing happened with it. No consequence or anything. But when I get to drop my load off, I was forced to wait like 3 hours, which would have put my day off anyway, and I wouldn't have got home tonight till about 2 in the morning, right? So, because originally I was thinking I can do it. I'm like, no, that's 600 miles, so that's like 11, 12 hours right there. How am I going to get home at 6 o'clock? So I said, forget it, I'm not going to do it. But this to sum it up in a nutshell, we got to do this lesson, but I was telling him, like, I feel good because I willfully obeyed as opposed to being forced into it. I pray that that's pleasing to the Most High, because if I would have went there with the intentions of continuing on my day, and then would have been forced into having to have class today, that's a different scenario than being willfully obedient and canceling and let come whatever comes. You know what I'm saying? So I feel good. So that's why I was saying on a text message that, let this be an example to all of us, to show us how important it is to respect the Most High holy days. When he say come to class on this, he said the Sabbaths are holy convocations, our gatherings. That's what a holy convocation is. Those who don't know, it's a gathering where it's reading out of the Most High's Bible or his law, right? When he say gather, he means gather. It's no, like he's not a guy to take excuses. Either you're gonna do it or you ain't. You know. And when I wrote in the text message, I said, it's better to be obedient because I don't want to be cut off from among his people. And when you read in the Old Testament, when you see when he commanded us to gather together, he said, or if you don't, you be cut off from his people. That don't mean that he's going to have the priest or the elder or whoever come kick you out of class. He's going to remove his spirit from you. Because if someone did something, like say if you committed fornication and the priest he didn't know, how do you get cut off from all his people? The Most High is the one that removed you, because he removed his spirit from you, and then he will also send a strong delusion to you, and like he says, you believe a lie, and so then you will go off farther and farther away from him, believing that what you're doing is still righteous, it's still acceptable to him. But you won't come to class. You stop fellowshipping. You stop communicating with your brothers and with your sisters. And that's how he cut you off and said, I'm afraid to be cut off. So that's why I called you out there and said, please come to class. Don't play with the Most High. This is the day that he commanded. Like his Sabbaths are the most, in the book of Jubilees, it said there's no day more important to him than his Sabbath. Than his Sabbath. And we can't say what our Sabbath is. We don't have a Sabbath. He said it's his Sabbath. It's his day. Right? We are to gather together. So unless you're mandated to go to work, or you're extremely sick and can't get out of bed, come to class. Please do not play with him, because the day is drawing near. Okay? With that being said, let's get it. Oh, so let's so what we're gonna do is read the whole story of out of the book of Esther. Okay, one of our sisters. So Esther chapter 1 verse 1. We're gonna start with that. And what we do is, like I told you earlier, we'll switch up chapters.
Come.
So I'm not gonna intervene a lot. We're just gonna read the story so we can bring it to a remembrance. So children, I need y'all to listen up, and I need you to open your Bible up and follow us. Kristen, look in the front and look for Esther. See, table of contents. Look what page is on and go there. No, it's ESTHER. So it might be EST or something like that.
It's in Old Testament or New Testament?
Old Testament.
Right before Job. Oh, I see.
And Kristen, I want you to understand something. And son, I need you to sit in this chair too. You can just playtime over it. Okay? Like I said, we are not to underestimate the minds of children. So, children, I need all of y'all, for as long as y'all can, to pay attention. Okay? Junior, you just pay attention. Because one thing that I do notice, and that's why I appreciate the music, is that my son knows a whole lot. It's amazing. Like, I was talking to him 2 days ago. He was telling me about the Israelite kingdom, and he said, "Daddy, I don't want to go to the kingdom." I said, "Well, why not, son?" "Because I can't bring my toys." I'm like, "Son, you have more. You have anything you want in the kingdom." "Oh, all right." But he knows it's an Israelite kingdom, and he's an Israelite, and a lot of stuff. You know what I'm saying? So that's why it's important for y'all to know, because the words we read out of this Bible are the Most High's words. He's our heavenly creator, and he knows his children. That's why he commands the women, the children, and his fathers to be together. So if y'all just hold tight and just listen, let the Most High's words penetrate. Even though y'all get carried off into whatever your mind takes you to, you are still listening. You're still learning. You will not forget these words. Okay? So let's get it.
Come. All right, family, we'll be starting in the book of Esther, chapter 1, verse 1.
Okay.
Yep. And it reads, "Now it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus, this is Ahasuerus, which reigned from India even unto Ethiopia, over 127 provinces, that in those days, when the king Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan the palace."
No, I'm gonna stop one time to put us in the mind frame of what time we in. Remember in the book of Daniel, the Most High said, "Before beasts that rule over God's people." This is the third kingdom, the Mede and the Persians. Okay, so that's what era we in right now. Okay, let's get it.
Verse 3. "In the 3rd year of his reign, he made a feast unto all princes and his princes and his servants, the power of Persia and Media, the nobles and princes of the provinces, being before him, when he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the honor of his excellent majesty many days, even 180 days, or 180 days."
You know, this is before we get into the lesson. I want to do something. I meant to do it before we got started in the lesson, but I want to give a shout out to my brother and my sister in Christ, to Karatazai and his wife Piney, for making these beautiful shirts for us, the Feast of Purim. So really appreciate my thing right there. Got the fringes. Thanks, Piney. The fringes down there. Can you see it?
Probably, yeah. Probably.
You see it? You
Oh,
see
yeah.
it?
Nah, they can't see the
Not on
fringes.
You see that? High, low, how?
There you go.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Okay, so.
They got some real.
You see it? So, the Wilder family, I really appreciate y'all. Good looking out.
The water.
Okay, let's go.
Thank you. All right. Start back at verse 3. In the 3rd year of his reign, he made a feast unto all his princes and his servants, the power of Persia and Media, the nobles and princes of the provinces, being before him. When he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the honor of his excellent majesty many days, even 180 days.
That's 180 days. 4 score is 20. Okay?
Yep, 20 times 4, the score. Yep, the score is 20. And when these days were expired...
Did I say 4 score?
Yeah, you said 4 scores. Yeah.
I'm sorry, a score is 20. Thank you.
Yep. And when these days were expired, the king made a feast unto all the people that were present in Shushan the palace, both unto great and small, 7 days, in the court of the garden of the king's palace, where were white, green, and blue hangings, fastened with cords of fine linen, and purple to silver rings, and pillars of marble. The beds were of gold and silver, upon a pavement of red and blue and white and black and marble. And they gave them drink in vessels of gold, the vessels being diverse one from another, and royal wine in abundance, according to the state of the king. And the drinking was according to the law. None did compel, for so the king had appointed to all the officers of his house, that they should do according to every man's pleasure. Also, Vashti, the queen, made a feast for the women in the royal house, which belonged to Ahasuerus, king.
Chris, I'm not going to be here all night, man. Follow along. We're in school. We're in class. Follow along. Let's go.
On the 7th day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded Mehuman, Bithsta, Harbona, Bigtha, and Abagtha, Zethar, and Carcass, the 7 chamberlains that served in the presence of Ahasuerus the king, to bring Vashti the queen before the king with the crown royal, to show the people and the princess her beauty, for she was fair to look on. But the queen Vashti refused to come at the king's commandment by his chamberlains. Therefore was the king very wroth or angry, and his anger burned in him. Then the king said to the wise men, which knew the times, for so was the king's manner toward all that knew law and judgment. And the next unto him was Karshina, Shethar, Admatha, Tarshish, Meres, Marsena, and Memucan, the 7 princes of Persia and Media, which saw the king's face, and which sat the first in the kingdom. What shall we do unto the queen Vashti according to the law? Because she hath not performed the commandment of the king Ahasuerus by the chamberlains. And Memucan answered before the king and the princes, Vashti the queen hath not done wrong to the king only, but also to all the princes, and to all the people that are in the provinces of the king Ahasuerus. For this deed of the queen shall come abroad unto all women, so that they shall despise their husbands in their eyes, when it shall be reported. The king Ahasuerus commanded Vashti the queen to be brought in before him, but she came not. Likewise shall the ladies of Persia and Media say this day unto all the king's princes, which have heard of the deed of the queen. Thus shall there arise too much contempt and wrath. If it please the king, let there go a royal commandment from him, and let it be written among the laws of the Persians and the Medes, that it be not altered, that Vashti come no more before King Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal estate unto another that is better than she. And when the king's decree, which he shall make, shall be published throughout all his empire, for it is great, all the wives shall give to their husbands honor, both to great and small. And the saying pleased the king and the princes, And the king did according to the word of Memucan. For he sent letters into all the king's provinces, into every province according to the writings thereof, and to every people after their language, that every man should bear rule in his own house, and that it should be published according to the language of every people.
Chapter 2. After these things, when the wrath of King Ahasuerus was appeased, he remembered Vashti, and what she had done, and what was decreed against her. Then said the king's servants that ministered unto him, Let there be fair young virgins sought for the king, and let the king appoint officers in all the provinces of his kingdom, that they may gather together all the fair young virgins unto Shushan the palace, to the house of the women, unto the custody of Hedge, the king's chamberlain, keeper of the women, and let their things be purified. Let their things for purification be given them, and let the maidens which please the king be queen instead of Vashti. And the thing pleased the king, and he did so. Now in Shushan, the palace was a certain Jew, whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish, a Benjamite, who had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captivity which had been carried away with Jeconiah, king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away. And he brought up Hadassah, that is, Esther, his uncle's daughter, for she had neither father nor mother. And the maid was fair and beautiful, whom Mordecai, when her father and her mother were dead, took her for his own daughter. So it came to pass, when the king's commandment and his decree was heard, and when many maidens were gathered together into Shushan the palace, to the custody of Haggai, that Esther was brought also unto the king's house, to the custody of Haggai, keeper of the women. And the maiden pleased him, and she obtained kindness of him, and she speedily gave her things for purification, with such things as belonged to her, and 7 maidens, which were meet to be given her out of the king's house. And he preferred her and her maids unto the best place of the house of the women. Esther had not shown her people nor her kindred, for Mordecai had charged her that she should not show it. And Mordecai walked every day before the court of the women's house, to know how Esther did, and what should become of her. Now when every maid's turn was come to go into the king's, Ahasuerus, after that she had been 12 months, according to the manner of the women, for so were the days of their purification accomplished, to wit, 6 months with oil of myrrh, and 6 months with sweet odors, and with other things for the purifying of the women. Then thus came every maiden unto the king. Whatsoever she desired was given her to go with her out of the house of the women unto the king's house. In the evening she went, and on the morrow she returned unto the second house of the women, to the custody of Shahazgaz, the king's chamberlain, which kept the concubines. She came in unto the king no more, except the king delighted in her, and that she was called by name. Now when the turn of Esther, the daughter of Ahayah, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her for his daughter, was come to go into the king, she required nothing but what Haggai, the king's chamberlain, the keeper of the women, appointed. And Esther obtained favor in the sight of all them that looked upon her. So Esther was taken into King Ahasuerus into his house, robed in the 10th month, in which is the month Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign. And the king loved Esther over all the women, and she obtained grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown upon her head, and made her queen instead of Vashti. Then the king made a great feast unto all his princes and his servants, even Esther's feast. And he made a release to the provinces, and gave gifts, according to the state of the king. And when the virgins were gathered together the second time, then Mordecai sat in the king's gate. Esther had not yet shown her kindred nor her people, as Mordecai had charged her. For Esther did the commandment of Mordecai, like as when she was brought up with him. In those days, while Mordecai sat in the king's gate, two of the king's chamberlain, Bigthan and Teresh, of those which kept the door, was wroth and sought to lay hands on the king as Ahasuerus. And the thing was known to Mordecai, who told it to Esther the queen. And Esther certified the king thereof in Mordecai's name. And when inquisitions was made of the matter, it was found out. Therefore they were both hanged on a tree, and it was written in the book of the Chronicles before the king.
Chapter 3. After these things, the king Ahasuerus promoted Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, and advanced him, and set his seat above all the princes that were with him. And all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman, for the king had so commanded concerning him. But Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence. Then the king's servants which were in the king's gate said unto Mordecai, Why transgressest thou the king's commandment? Now it came to pass, when they spoke daily unto them, and he hearkened not unto them, that they told Haman, to see whether Mordecai's matter would stand. For he had told them that he was a Jew. And when Haman saw that Mordecai
Excuse me. Now it says that he was a Jew. We're going to read later that our people. Matter of fact, let me just put a cart for a horse to and read this to you. It says, and Mordecai, hold on.
Verse 8.
Verse 8. Oh, you about to read it?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Salakia. No, I'm about to read it. No, it says, and Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, There is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all people. Because as we know in the scriptures, the Most High said he only given his laws, statutes, and judgments to the children of Israel, not to the whole world. So one of our greatest commandments is to put nothing before the Most High, have no other gods before the Most High. So we don't bow down to men, putting a man before the Most High. So he said that he was a Jew. The Most High was his sovereign Lord. Put no lords before us. But we have a different law than all other people on the earth. We were scattered abroad because of disobedience. But still, this law, like we say every Sabbath, has not changed. Our laws, our customs are different than any other people on the earth. It's time for us to get back to our laws, statutes, and commandments. But then it says, neither keep they the king's law. Because the Most High said, no, like even Christ says, give to Caesar things of Caesar, and to the Most High the things of the Most High. But what the king was requiring from our people was outside of the parameters. Okay, their feast was defiled. Their customs were defiled to the Most High. So we didn't follow what the king said. We did what the Most High said. This to add to that. But let's go.
Verse 5. And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath, and he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had showed him the people of Mordecai. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, even the people of Mordecai. In the first month, that is the month Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast pur, that is the lot, before Haman from day to day, and from month to month, to the 12th month, that is the month Adar. And Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, There is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all people, neither keep they the king's laws. Therefore it is not for the king's profit to suffer them. If it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have the charge of the business, to bring it into the king's treasuries. And the king took his ring from his hand, and gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite.
And when it says Agagite, we know that that's the bloodline of Amalek, which are the so-called royal families, bloodline today. This is the bloodline that the Most High told Saul to eradicate. But this is Agag, so it comes from Agag. So this is that bloodline that the Most High can't stand, because perpetually throughout centuries, they was our biggest thorn in the flesh. No matter what kingdom was in rulership, they always stuck their way into, because they mighty hunters. They was very skilled in war, so they found favor in all the king's eyes because they was able to train their soldiers to with these special tactics. Like right now, these people they're very skillful in warfare. So their primary goal is to destroy the children of Israel. So I'm not giving the whole history, but this is an attempt by Satan to use his people to destroy the Most Highs. Okay, so let's go.
And the king took his ring from his hand, and gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the Jews' enemy. And the king said unto Haman, the silver is given to thee, the people also, to do with them as it seemeth good to thee. Then were the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the first month, and there was written according to all that Haman had commanded unto the king's lieutenants, and to the governors that were over every province, and to the rulers of every people of every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language. In the name of King Ahasuerus was it written, and sealed with the king's ring. And the letters were sent by post into all the king's provinces, to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish all Jews, both young and old, little children and women, in one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, and to take the spoil of them for a prey. The copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, that they should be ready against that day. The post went out, being hastened by the king's commandment, and the decree was given in Shushan the palace. And the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city, Shushan, was perplexed.
Now, to bring this into our time, many of our people don't understand right now that it's like this government signed legislation to destroy us, so has America. Right? It used to be called Rex 84, then it transformed into the King Alfred plan, and then it went to Obama when he was in office. It was called something else. Anyway, I can't remember the name of it. Y'all can look up for yourselves.
Executive.
It's
one of the executive
It was
orders.
executive order, but it changed the name.
Okay.
Okay. At first, the Rex 84 was just to destroy our people. Okay. Oh man, what's the name of that thing? The King Alfred plan. No, I think I got it twisted. Anyway, the King Alfred plan was first, and then the Rex 84 it included the so-called Mexican people, right? Which is also who are also Israelites, right? The tribe of Issachar. So the government, through Satan, has always been trying to find a way to destroy God's people. And it's by His grace that we still alive, because they have been warring with us through food, water, air, all kind of possible ways, vaccines, all kind of things to destroy our people, but we still are populating. Same way we did in Egypt. Okay? Parent parenthood, by abortions, all kind of stuff. But truthfully, today, right now, many people are unbeknownst to this, but they have legal legislation to destroy our people, to lock us up with no cause and to terminate us. and they're just waiting for the right moment. Right now, they're trying to take our guns from us. So right now, when all the little false flags go on, you're going to see somebody out the blue talking about, AK-47. We need gun control. That's the narrative that they try to paint into the public mind, so they can take away our guns, so we'd be easy prey. But they're coming. According to Christ, they're coming. And that's why Christ says, like we say all the time, unless his Father cut the time short, no flesh will survive this generation. So this is Satan's plan. Like it started back from our fathers, from Esau and Jacob, when Esau said that his desire was to destroy his brother Jacob, and we went into the Agagite, who was his Amalekite, which is an Edomite, who are today the so-called Caucasian people and the Jewish people. Those people, not all white people, but especially that hierarchy, come from the bloodline of Amalek, which is Esau's grandson. They are a true enemy of God's people. They are who Satan has been using for a long time, trying to destroy us. So I just want to point that out because nothing has changed. Nothing new up under the sun. It's the same plot. Esau is trying to destroy his brother Jacob. It's like when we was in the womb fighting. We're still fighting. We're fighting for dominion. The promise was given to Jacob, not to Esau. The promise of dominion. Okay, but let's go.
Chapter 4. When Mordecai perceived all that was done, Mordecai rent his clothes and put on sackcloth with ashes, and went out into the midst of the city, and cried with a loud and bitter cry, and came even before the king's gate, for none might enter into the king's gate clothed with sackcloth. And in every province, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, there was great mourning among the Jews, and fasting, and weeping, and wailing, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes. Just to kind of expound on that, sackcloth, that's like really tattered, like your clothes, like when they were mourning throughout the scripture, whenever our people were mourning, they put on like sackcloth. And the ashes just represented like their mourning. Like when you see somebody, I don't know, how would you kind of expound on that a little bit? How would you it's pretty much is like just, you also see rent clothes, and so like they'll rip their clothes and stuff like that. So
when it comes to the sackcloths are a very uncomfortable fit. It's very itchy and that kind of stuff. So it was a state of humbling ourselves to be uncomfortable, showing our humility. So we would get dirt, dirt, so they put on our heads and show our sorrowfulness. That's what it was. It represented that to the Most High, that we're sorrowful and we're begging Him for His mercy, for Him to hear us. So that was a physical representation of sorrowfulness. Okay.
Verse 4. So Esther's maids and her chamberlains came and told it her. Then was the queen exceedingly grieved, and she sent raiment to clothe Mordecai and to take away his sackcloth from him, but he received it not. Then called Esther for Hathach, one of the king's chamberlains, whom he had appointed to attend upon her, and gave him a commandment to Mordecai to know what it was and why it was. So Hathach went forth to Mordecai unto the street of the city, which was before the king's gate. And Mordecai told him of all that had happened unto him, and of the sum of the money that Haman had promised to pay the king's treasuries for the Jews to destroy them. Also, he gave him the copy of the writing of the decree that was given at Shushan to destroy them, to show it unto Esther, and to declare it unto her, and to charge her that she should go in unto the king, to make supplication unto him, and to make requests before him for her people. And Hathach came and told Esther the words of Mordecai. Again, Esther spake unto Hathach, and gave him commandment unto Mordecai, and all the king's servants, and the people of the king's provinces, do know that whosoever, whether man or woman, shall come unto the king into the inner court, who is not called, there is one law of his to put him to death, except such to whom the king shall hold out the golden scepter, that he may live. But I have not been called to come in unto the king these 30 days. And they told Mordecai Esther's words. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, think not with thyself, Salakia, think not with thyself that thou shalt escape in the king's house more than all the Jews. For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place. But thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed. And who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Then Esther bade them return Mordecai this answer. Go, gather together all the Jews that are present in Shushan, and fast ye for me, and neither eat nor drink 3 days, 3 days, night or day. I will also make my maidens, I also and my maidens will fast likewise, and so will I go in unto the king, which is not according to the law, and if I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went his way, and did according to all that Esther had commanded him.
Chapter 5. Now it came to pass on the 3rd day that Esther put on her royal apparel and stood in the inner court of the king's house, over against the king's house. And the king sat upon his royal throne in the royal house, over against the gate of the house. And it was so, when the king saw Esther the queen standing in the court, that she obtained favor in his sight. And the king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. So Esther drew near and touched the top of the scepter. Then said the king unto her, what wilt thou, Queen Esther, and what is thy request? It should be even given thee to the half of the kingdom. And Esther answered, if it seems good unto the king, let the king and Haman come this day unto the banquet that I have prepared for him. Then the king said, cause Haman to make haste, that he may do as Esther hath said. So the king and Haman came to the banquet that Esther had prepared. And the king said unto Esther at the banquet of wine, what is thy petition? And it shall be granted thee. And what is thy request? Even to the half of the kingdom it shall be performed. Then answered Esther, and said, my petition and my request is, if I have found favor in the sight of the king, and if it please the king to grant my petition and to perform my request, let the king and Haman come to the banquet that I should prepare for them. And I will do to tomorrow as the king have said. Then went Haman forth that day joyful, and with a glad heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, that he stood not up, nor moved for him, he was full of indignation against Mordecai. Nevertheless, Haman refrained himself, and when he came home, he sent and called for his friends, and Zeresh his wife. And Haman told them of the glory of his riches, and the multitude of his children, and all the things wherein the king had promoted him, and how he had advanced him above the princes and servants of the king. Haman said moreover, yea, Esther the queen did let no man come in with the king unto the banquet that she had prepared but myself. And Maro, and I am invited into her also with the king. Yet all this availed me nothing. So long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate. Then said Zeresh his wife and all his friends unto him, let a gallows be made of 50 cubits high, and tomorrow speak thou unto the king that Mordecai may be hanged thereon. Then go thou in merrily with the king into the banquet. And the thing pleased Haman, and he caused the gallows to be made. I want to say something so bad right now, but remember what's going on right now, okay? Because all this is the Most High is doing, okay? And for those, like we talk about the sisters, this is the time that the Most High used a sister. I'm gonna stop right there. So it's not a bad thing to be a sister. The Most High love y'all too. He has used sisters for many things, just not to teach. Okay, but let's go. But I don't want to tell the story. I want to keep reading. Let's go.
Chapter 6. On that night could not the king sleep, and he commanded to bring the book of records of the chronicles, and they were read before the king. And it was found written that Mordecai had told of Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's chamberlains, the keepers of the door, who sought to lay hands on King Ahasuerus. And the king said, What honor and dignity hath been done to Mordecai for this? Then said the king's servants that ministered unto him, There is nothing done for him. And the king said, Who is in the court? Now Haman was come into the outward court of the king's house, to speak unto the king to hang Mordecai on the gallows that he had prepared for him. And the king's servant said unto him, Behold, Haman standeth in the court. And the king said, Let him come in. So Haman came in, and the king said unto him, What shall be done unto the man whom the king delighteth to honor? Now Haman thought in his heart, To whom would the king delight to do honor more than to myself? And Haman answered the king, For the man whom the king delighteth to honor. Let the royal apparel be brought, which the king useth to wear, and the horse that the king rideth upon, and the crown royal which is set upon his head. And let this apparel and horse be delivered to the hand of one of the king's most noble princes, that they may array the man with all whom the king delighteth to honor, and bring him on horseback through the street of the city, and proclaim before him, Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delighteth to honor. Then the king said to Haman, Make haste, and take the apparel and the horse, as thou hast said, and do even so to Mordecai the Jew, that sitteth at the king's gate. Let nothing fail of all that thou hast spoken. Then took Haman the apparel and the horse, and arrayed Mordecai, and brought him on horseback through the street of the city, and proclaimed before him, Thus shall it be done unto the man whom the king delighteth to honor. And Mordecai came again to the king's gate, but Haman hastened to the house mourning, and even having his head covered. And Haman told Zeresh his wife and all his friends everything that had befallen him. Then said his wise men and Zeresh his wife unto him, If Mordecai be of the seed of the Jews, before whom thou hast begun to fall, thou shalt not prevail against him, but shalt surely fall before him. And when they were yet talking with him, came the king's chamberlains, and hastened to bring Haman unto the banquet that Esther had prepared.
Chapter 7. So the king and Haman came to the banquet with Esther, the queen. And the king said again unto Esther on the second day at the banquet of wine, What is thy petition, Queen Esther? And it should be granted thee. And what is thy request? And it should be performed even to the half of the kingdom. Then Esther the queen answered and said, If I have found favor in thy sight, O king, and if it please the king, let my life be given me at my petition, and my people at my request. For we are sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be slain, and to perish. But if we had been sold for bondmen and bondwomen, I had held my tongue, although the enemy could not countervail the king's damage. Then the king Ahasuerus answered and said unto Esther the queen, Who is he? And where is he? That thus presumed in his heart to do so. And Esther said, The adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman. Then Haman was afraid before the king and the queen. And the king, arising from the banquet of wine in his wrath, went into the palace garden. And Haman stood up to make requests for his life to Esther the queen, for he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king. Then the king returned out of the palace garden into the palace of the banquet of wine, and Haman was fallen upon the bed where Esther was. Then said the king, will he force the queen also before me in the house? As the word went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. And Harbonah, one of the chamberlains, said before the king, behold also the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mordecai, who had spoken good for the king, standing in the house of Haman. Then the king said, hang him thereon. So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then was the king wrath pacified.
Chapter 8. On that day did the king Ahasuerus give the house of Haman the Jews' enemy unto Esther the queen. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told what he was unto her. And the king took off his ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it unto Mordecai. And Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman. And Esther spake yet again before the king, and fell down at his feet, and besought him with tears to put away the mischief of Haman the Agagite, and his device that he had devised against the Jews. Then the king held out the golden scepter toward Esther. So Esther arose and stood before the king, and said, if it please the king, and if I have found favor in his sight, and the thing seem right before the king, and I be pleasing in his eyes, let it be written to reverse the letters devised by Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, which he wrote to destroy the Jews which are in all the king's provinces. For how can I endure to see the evil that shall come upon my people? Or how can I endure to see the destruction of my kindred? Then the king Ahasuerus said unto Esther the queen, and to Mordecai the Jew, behold, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and him they have hanged upon the gallows, because he laid his hand upon the Jews. Write ye also for the Jews, as it liketh you, in the king's name, and seal it with the king's ring. For the writing which is written in the king's name, and sealed with the king's ring, may no man reverse. Then were the king's scribes called at that time in the 3rd month, that is, the month Sivan, on the 23rd day thereof. And it was written according to all that Mordecai commanded unto the Jews, and to the lieutenants, and to the deputies, and rulers over the provinces which are from India unto Ethiopia, and 127 provinces, and unto every province according to the writing thereof, and unto every people after their language, and to the Jews according to their writing, and according to their language. And he wrote in the king Ahasuerus' name, and sealed it with the king's ring, and sent back letters by post on horseback, and riders on mules, camels, and young dromedaries, wherein the king granted the Jews which were in every city to gather themselves together, and to stand for their life, to destroy, to slay, and to cause to perish all the power of the people and province that would assault them, both little ones and women, and to take the spoil of them for a prey, upon one day in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, namely, upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar. The copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, and that the Jews should be ready against that day to avenge themselves on their enemies. So the posts that roll upon mules and camels went out, being hastened and pressed on the king's commandment, and the decree was given at Shushan the palace. And Mordecai went out from the presence of the king in royal apparel of blue and white, and with a great crown of gold, and with a garment of fine linen and purple. And the city of Shushan rejoiced and was glad. The Jews had light and gladness and joy and honor, and in every province and in every city, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness, a feast and a good day, and many of the people of the land became Jews. for the fear of the Jews fell upon them.
Now let me say this. Like, these people in the land didn't become Jews. They followed the customs and guide of the Jews. The Jew is a bloodline. Okay, so that's what it's saying. They follow the customs and their guide. And this to show you how marvelous the Most High is. Right? The same devices that this wicked man and his people have thought to destroy God's people with, he used to destroy them. So that's why the Most High said that in the end times that he'll be glorified in his people. Can y'all see the parallel or how it talks about when the Most High when he visited the earth and destroy, bring his destruction, that many of the Gentiles will cleave to Jacob and say that surely our fathers we have inherited lives from our fathers. Teachers of your God, we'll follow him. The same thing is going on. Right? The Most High was glorified in his people. He used Queen Esther. But the same device, the same legislation, he turned on them and destroyed them. And which he will do again. But let's get to chapter 9. Now the 12th month, that is, the month Adar, on the 13th day of the same, when the king's commandment and his decree drew near to be put in execution, in the day that the enemies of the Jews hoped to have power over them, though it was turned to the contrary, that the Jews had rule over them that hated them. And the Jews gathered themselves together in their cities throughout all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus, to lay hand on such as sought their hurt, and no man could withstand them, for the fear of them fell upon all people. And all the rulers of the provinces, and the lieutenants, and the deputies, and officers of the king helped the Jews, because the fear of Mordecai fell upon them. Who put the fear in the people? Who put the fear in the people of God's people? The Most High. And they helped him. And for Mordecai was great in the king's house, and his fame went out throughout all the provinces. For this man Mordecai waxed greater and greater. Thus the Jews smote all their enemies with the stroke of the sword, and slaughter and destruction, and did what they would unto those that hated them. But do y'all see what we have to do first? We have to humble ourselves, fast, and pray to the Most High, call upon the Most High. We relied on him, and he came through for us. We didn't rely on no army, nothing. We were set for destruction. We came together harmoniously, unitedly, and fasted and prayed and cried out to our God. For verse 6. And in Shushan, the palace of the Jews slew and destroyed 500 men. And Parshandatha, and Delphon, and Ashpatha, and Poratha, and Adalah, and Ardatha, and Parmashta, and Arsa, say, and Arda, and Vajatha, the 10 sons of Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the enemy of the Jews, slew they. But on the spoil laid they not their hands. On that day, the number of those that were slain in Shushan the palace was brought before the king. And the king said unto Esther the queen, the Jews have slain and destroyed 500 men in Shushan the palace, and the 10 sons of Haman. What have they done in the rest of the king's palaces? Now, what is thy petition, and it should be granted thee? Or what is thy request farther, and it should be done? And then said Esther, if it please the king, let it be granted to the Jews which are in Shushan, to do tomorrow also according unto this day's decree, and let Haman 10 sons be hanged upon the gallows. And the king commanded it so to be done. And the decree was given at Shushan, and they hanged Haman's 10 sons. For the Jews that were in Shushan gathered themselves together on the 14th day also of the month of Adar, and slew 300 men at Shushan. But on the prey they laid not their hand. But the other Jews that were in the king's provinces gathered themselves together and stood for their lives, and had rest from their enemies, and slew of those foes 75,000. But they laid not their hands on the prey. On the 13th day of the month of Adar, and on the 14th day of the same rested day, and made it a day of feasting and gladness. Let me read that again, verse 16. But the other Jews that were in the king's province gathered themselves together and stood for their lives, and they rested from their enemies, and slew their foes 75,000. But they laid not their hands on his prey. That's called salvation. Okay? This is why we say our holy days deal with our salvation. We have rest from our enemies. That's salvation. The Most High promised the same thing in the book of Mark. We have rest from our enemies. Okay? So, on the 13th day of the month Adar, on the 14th day, so 2 days of the same rested day, and made it a day of feasting and gladness. But the Jews that were at Shushan assembled together on the 13th day thereof, and on the 14th day thereof, and on the 15th day of the same day rested, and made it a day of feasting and gladness. Therefore the Jews of the villages that dwelt in the unwalled towns made the 14th day of the month Adar a day of gladness and feasting, and a good day, and a sending portions one to another. And Mordecai wrote these things and sent letters unto all the Jews that were in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus, both nigh and far, to establish through the Spirit of the Most High. You see, the Most High is dealing with our people right now. This is all spiritually inspired. To establish this among them, because they was all on different days, different ways. So he established this among them, that they should keep the 14th day of the month Adar and the 15th day of the same yearly, as the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, and the month which was turned into them from sorrow to joy, and from mourning into to a good day, that they should make them days of feasting and joy, and of sending portions one to another, and gifts to the poor. And the Jews undertook to do as they had begun, and as Mordecai had written unto them, because Haman the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of the Jews. Notice how the Most High keeps saying the enemy of the Jews. This bloodline is the enemy of the Jews. This not this man, that bloodline had devised against the Jews to destroy them, and had cast how you say that? Pur.
Yeah.
That is the lot to consume them and to destroy them. But when Esther came before the king, he commanded by letters that his wicked device which he devised against the Jews should return upon his own head, and that he and his sons should be hanged on the gallows. Wherefore they call these days Purim, after the name of Pur. I can't say Pur. Right? Pur.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah, it works. Therefore, for all the words of this letter, and of that which they had seen concerning this matter, and which had come unto them, the Jews ordained and took upon them, and upon their seed, and upon all such as joined themselves unto them. Sorry, brothers, but these are Gentiles that join themselves to us. Okay? So as it should not fail, that they will keep these 2 days according to their writing, and according to their appointed time every year, and that these days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation. Read that again. All scriptures are inspired by the Most High. And that these days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation, every family, every province, in every city, and that these days of Purim should not fail from among the Jews. They should not fail from among us people, nor the memorial of them perish from their seed. Then Esther the queen, the daughter of Ahayah, and Mordecai the Jew, wrote with all authority to confirm this second letter of Purim. And he sent the letters unto all the Jews, to the 127 provinces of the kingdom of Ahasuerus, with words of peace and truth, to confirm these days of Purim in their times appointed, according as Mordecai the Jew and Esther the queen had enjoined them, and as they had decreed for themselves and for their seed the matters of the fasting and their cry. And the decree of Esther confirmed these matters of Purim, and it was written in the book. 10.
Chapter 10. And the king Ahasuerus laid a tribute upon the land and upon the isles of the sea, and all the acts of his power and of his might, and the declaration of the greatness of Mordecai, whereunto the king advanced him, and are they not written in the book of the chronicles of the kings of Media and Persia? For Mordecai the Jew was next unto Ahasuerus, and great among the Jews, and accepted of the multitude of his brethren, seeking the wealth of his people, and speaking peace to all his seed.
So, getting back to the premise of this, why we read this story, let's put our mindsets there. Imagine if it been noise abroad that tomorrow the military is coming to round us up and kill us. Like, let's put our minds there. We know for sure they have announced on television, everything. Tomorrow, all so-called African Americans, Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, Jamaicans, Hawaiians, the natives in Australia, Cubans will be eradicated off the face of the earth. So when we read the story, we got to put ourselves there, right? Because we read the story, it's like it's a regular story. But it's the reason why the Most High said this is a memorial forever, so we can teach our children. Because we have to put ourselves there. So that means that we can, it wasn't in us to gather ourselves up and get guns or swords or whatever to try to fight against these armies. Through a strong leader of Mordecai, did our people lean on and go to? The Most High. He said, if we put down our idols, put down our filthiness, that he would answer us. We are the only people on the face of the earth that have seen his judgments. We are the only people on the earth that the Most High has fought for. Just imagine. What changed these people from fear to value or courage? Because they was all prepared to die and whatever, but the Most High put a spirit in them and they fought. He said every man stood up for his life. The Most High put his spirit in them and he put angels before them and they destroyed all their adversaries. This story is made to remember because that's what he's going to do for us. So same way that we read Moses coming out and our people coming out of the Red Sea, out of Egypt, we must read this story too. To build again faith and confidence in our God. Because he will. Because like I said, he is the Redeemer of the children of Israel. He is the God of the Hebrews. And he will not forsake his people. He will fight for his children. Okay? With that, that concludes the lesson. Anyone have any questions, comments, to add?
I wasn't understanding it at first, but when you said it, that summed it up for me.
See, now that's why I want to give glory to the women. He didn't tell Mordecai to gather and number all the men and go fight. He used a woman to destroy the adversary. Right? So Most High loves sisters too. So for all you brothers who women haters, you need to get your mind right. That's a daughter of Zion. Okay?
You wouldn't have made him if you didn't love him.
Exactly. There's daughters. Okay? But he has an order.
That's right.
There's the Most High, Christ, man, and women. Okay? Yeah. When it comes to teaching, that's what I'm saying is because there's women out here teaching. The Most High has never used women in the priestly office. The Most High is, like you say, his word is constant. That has not changed. So, just want to say that. With that, let's close in prayer and break bread. Shalom.
Shalom.
Kwam Yasha Allah. Kwam Yasha Allah. Kwam Yasha Allah.